Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon and I are going to dive deep into some of the NBA's early season breakout players and whether or not their improvements are real and sustainable, or whether we worry about them coming back down to earth a little bit. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy? It's a beautiful Hallows Eve in the United States. I got to tell you, for the first time here in Australia, there were trick-or-treaters out in my neighborhood. It has spread. It has spread to the other side of the world. How are you today?
The kids in Australia heard there's candy involved, and they had to figure out how to get in on this. I'm good. The Pistons look good and picked up a win on Wednesday. We got Halloween, which quite honestly is my least favorite holiday, but it's my wife's favorite, so I'm in a good mood. And my kids are dressed up as all Chiefs. Little man is Patrick Mahomes. The older son is Travis Kelce. And then my daughter is a Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader. So all Chiefs all the way. And then home playoff game for our high school football team on Friday. So lots going on right now over here in the States.
Fantastic. You guys are rolling. I love it. I got to go out to Melbourne United Sydney last night. Got to see Alex Tui. That was super fun. Tui played well. It was a fucking fantastic game, man. Like, those teams absolutely were like on one. Like, they were great defensively. They were bumping each other. It was physical off the ball, man. And then Jack White just like drilled 2 threes to end the game. I had such a good time, as I always do here going to NBL games. But yeah, it was really, really fun. But most of my time has been grinding tape, watching NBA games so that we can do shows like this, as well as something that we need a title for, or at least I need a title for, these nights where I go live after games end. We've gotten some decent recommendations so far.
Late nights with Sam doesn't hit right.
Yeah, like one was game night. So like take Game Theory and then like add night.
Yeah.
I said Game Theory at night. And look, Game Night, by the way, is like one of my favorite comedies, movies of the last 10 years. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? I used Game Theory at night. Someone said Sleepless with Sam was one.
The movie ones are good.
Night
right?
Theory, was one. Like Night Shift was one. Speaking of movies, shout out Michael Keaton, fellow Pittsburgh Pirate fan and Pittsburgher. Let's go. Night Shift is too old for you. You do not know that movie.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Night Shift is like Michael Keaton's first movie where he who Michael Keaton is, correct?
Yeah, he played Batman at one point or something, right?
There we go. We got it. We're on it. So yeah, I say all of this to say, I will probably be doing that a couple of nights a week, 2 or 3 nights a week through the NBA season is my hope, assuming that things don't get crazy work-wise. Please continue to send naming suggestions. We will take the best one and we will name it Game Theory, Game Theory at night, Night Theory, whatever the hell we want to name it, right? So that is our plan currently. Additionally, go subscribe to all of the many social media channels that our fearless leader, GMAC, who unfortunately can't join us today, he is the steward, the leader of all of these things. X/Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Game Theory Sam V. Also go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are listening to this on your podcast feeds. Okay, Bryce, are you excited to dive in to some of these early season NBA breakouts and talking about, whether or not we think they're sustainable, like, guys that we've been excited to watch so far this year? I have a list of 3 or 4 guys that I want to talk about for sure. I'm sure that you're going to mention a couple of them as well. I'm just really excited to go through and talk about this.
Yeah, I think what's interesting here is I think the first names I'll bring up are guys that are kind of known, like they're very good players that I think early on in the season has made a little bit of a jump. And then there's some guys who sophomore jump, some guys who are all of a sudden getting an opportunity. There's one name I want to mention it's just fascinating to me that he's earned a backup point guard spot and he's playing it so well for a team. And so I think my point is we're going to be all over the map in terms of the levels of players and the situations that we're talking about. And so because of that, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So the reason that we kind of came up with this idea was because you wanted to talk about a couple of players particularly, and I think we can combine them into one, or you can talk about one of them, like whatever you want to do here. But I'll give you the floor first. We can run through those guys and maybe talk through what's been one of the, I don't know, I think that's probably, they've been one of the bigger surprises of the season thus far, right?
Is that where you want me to start? Because I had a different one I was going to start with, but you want me to start with that one?
Start with that one, because I just like that.
Yeah. So I just text Sam and I said, I kind of want to talk about Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroder because these guys are cooking right now for the Brooklyn Nets. They're both top 20 in scoring in the NBA, Sam. Cam Thomas is 13th at 27.4 and Dennis is 20th at 24.6. Both are playing extremely well. We've talked about Cam Thomas, right? I've made the joke about him leading the NBA in scoring this year. I mean, he's 13th right now, 4 points behind. It probably was never going to happen. It was more of a joke, but still he is getting buckets. And I think one thing that really stood out to me when I did look up their stats was the number of threes that both of them are taking. They're shooting a ridiculous volume of 3-pointers. 7.6 attempts for Schroder, 55%, 8 attempts a game for Cam Thomas. It's 35%. His efficiency still isn't crazy, but getting up high volume. Schroder's also averaging 8.2 assists. And then the number that really stood out to me, this is the number 6 offensive rating in the NBA. Now the defense, not great, but the offense overall, led by these two, has led this team to a 2-3 record to start off.
Yeah, so look, they're not setting the world on fire. They lost to a Hawks team that just lost back-to-back games to the Wizards, right?
Yeah.
This, we don't want to sit here and overstate what the Brooklyn Nets are necessarily.
Sure, yeah.
But look, their last 3 games, they've beaten the Bucks, a Bucks team that came in and kind of sleepwalked, it felt like. They went to overtime with the Nuggets and probably should have won that game.
Yes.
If we're being completely honest.
Yes.
And then also, they just beat the Grizzlies by 13. They played really, really well. I had to watch that game this morning because I was like, wait, what happened here? How did this happen? So I almost want to start with Schroder. I think he has been the more impressive of the two.
I think I agree. Yes.
So he's been remarkably efficient coming off of this little Olympic stretch here. I mean, he's shooting 55% from the field. And then part of that is he's just nuclear from 3 right now, but he's also finishing on the interior fairly well. And the passing has been significant. He is really the guy that's kind of stirring the drink when I watch them. They're running a ton of side ball screens. They're running a lot of just high ball screens. They're doing a lot of really, really fun stuff to get him into space. And on top of it, they have the 2 shooters in Finney Smith and Cam Johnson that do get guarded, that allows Schroder and Cam Thomas just as much space as they need to in order to successfully be able to attack defenses. So look, I don't think Schroder is going to average 25 and 9 the rest of the year, but part of this is he's again just crazy hot from 3, and that'll come down to earth for sure. He might average 20 until he gets moved, or if they move him, whatever. I could very well see him averaging 20 on this team throughout the course of the time he's there. It's not dissimilar to me he's playing better than this guy was last year. So I don't want to like, don't freak out, Brooklyn fans. But like it's not dissimilar to me to what Terry Rozier was doing last year in Charlotte before he got traded to Miami. Rozier was averaging 23 points, 6.6 assists while shooting 46, 36, 85. I think Schroeder's first 5 games have been better than really anything I've seen from Terry Rozier or saw last year from Terry Rozier. But man, I think that Schroeder has been just fantastic so far.
Yeah, and I mean, he brings what this team really needs, which is like on ball. You mentioned it. They're putting the ball in his hands a lot, which doesn't force Cam Thomas to do quite as much with the ball in his hands, but he's just breaking down the defense. I'm glad you mentioned the passing because that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as well with him was he's breaking down the defense. He's creating while also, like you said, just shooting really, really hot right now, but he's also finishing inside the 3-point line. I'm glad you mentioned how long he's on this team because I actually had that in my notes as well. Like as fun as it is to watch this backcourt and as hard as it is to guard them, I think for opposing teams, I just kind of wonder what does it mean? Like what does that mean for Brooklyn when you watch them and Schroeder's going crazy, Cam Johnson, like every note I have on Dorian Finney-Smith is just get this guy on contender, please. Please. He was having to guard Jokic the other night. And I'm just, like, nobody does it successfully, but I'm like, get him on a contender. To your point, Schroeder's on an expiring $13 million deal. I feel like that's going to fit in nicely if he continues to play this somebody and some good team can talk themselves into him running their team off the bench, especially if he's able to, again, it's not going to stay here, but elongate this through a month of the season or a month and a half of the season and get somebody to really buy into at 31. He's found this role and is playing really well.
Well, it's interesting too to think about Schroeder, right? Because obviously, his last stop before this was the Lakers, right?
I think about it all the time.
Toronto, I guess, but he signed that deal with Toronto and then got traded to Brooklyn. And, really though, other than that half season in Toronto, it was the Lakers. And I mean, can you imagine this version of Dennis Schroeder, like playing for the Lakers and playing next to Austin Reeves and like this offense, like really kind of, humming along with multiple guards who can play make like that'd make a lot of sense to me. Right.
Yeah, no, that's another reason why it always stands out to me. Cause you look for a guy like that for LA. And like you mentioned, they had him at one point. Now the thing with him is if he did get moved to another team, and he's in a different role, do you see the same efficiency? Does he play the same way? Because I think, to me, you see like Olympics and the version of him where he kind of gets to be the man. And that's what he's kind of getting to do in Brooklyn right now. How does that change if he does go to a team and he's not the man? Even off the bench, that changes things a little bit. So, but like I said, I've watched 2 of their games already this year. I had no anticipation of doing that, but it's because
I've watched 3.
Yeah,
like I'm there with you. Like
them and the Wizards, man. Those are the 2 teams I did not think I'd be tuning into. And I've watched 2 Wizards games in the last couple days because it's like, oh, this guy did what? They did what? This is something I better tune into and watch.
By the way, if you want to hear more about the Wizards, I did a deep dive on Bilal Coulibaly's 27 points, 9 rebounds. I don't know if you wanted to talk about him later in the show.
I have his name, so let's not go too much.
Okay. So we'll talk about him in a second, maybe. Yeah. But go watch that video. I did a deep dive breaking down tape from how fantastic he was against Atlanta, guarding Trae Young and also dropping 27. Like he was a monster in that game. It was unbelievable. Okay. I will go first then, or I will go. Well, no, I guess, do we want to talk about Cam Thomas? Cam Thomas is basically just doing what Cam Thomas does. Like,
I don't think
none of this is new to me.
No, it's not surprising. I mean, really, if he was doing this, like it's really about his backcourt. I will say he is scoring a little bit more, right? Like his scoring is up 5 points per game. The efficiency hasn't improved a whole lot. The 3-point volume is just crazy. But, the assist, turnovers, all that stuff is kind of the same. But it's just like those 2 guys combined just make for a backcourt that's tough to defend. On any night, they could go for 60, 55 to 60 between the 2 of them.
Yeah, totally. So I'm definitely like intrigued by the Cam Thomas experience for sure. And he's played really well. I thought he was particularly good in the second half against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks did not have a chance to guard him. It felt like he got into the paint and took those floaters whenever he wanted. I am really excited more than anything about Cam Thomas that he is taking threes at volume.
Yeah.
That is the big adjustment for him so far. He has never really done that substantially, at a high volume throughout the course of his career. Last year, he got up to 6 per game.
Yep.
This year, he's all the way at 8. I really think that that's the key sustainability thing for him to being an efficient scorer. I totally buy all of the crafty stuff that he can do to be able to get buckets off the bounce and being able to draw fouls. And I think his touch is pretty significant. I just also still don't love the defense. I think the defense has not been very good. The passing looked like he's not a historically bad passer anymore, which is good. Honestly, if we're talking about growth, Cam Thomas not being a historically bad passer is a important growth step for him. He's now just below average for the role, but he's such a significant scorer. He's such a serious dude in terms of being able to get buckets that it's hard to really look at him and say that he's not going to be successful doing that at any point in his career.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the free throws because that is a part of efficiency, right? So even though his field goal percentage is down a little bit, the 3-point percentage is down a little bit, he's taking 2 more threes per game. He's taking almost 3 free throw attempts more per game this season than last season. So in some ways that 3-point volume, getting to the free throw line, it does make him a more efficient scorer, even if the percentages aren't always going to be maybe what you want, because the shot diet is just so aggressive and so difficult.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, one last thing on the Nets, just looking through their contracts, Simmons expiring, Bogdanovich expiring, Schroder expiring, Zaire Williams, who's been interesting, shooting the ball really well, spacing the floor, Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe, all restricted free agents. So just a lot of decisions to be made in Brooklyn at the trade deadline / this coming off season.
That is accurate. And I would imagine that ends with a lot of them being traded. If I'm being honest. Okay. Next up, I want to talk about your dear sweet boy, Jaden Ivey.
Let's go.
Jaden Ivey so far has been awesome. And we are here, Bryce. The Ivy heads are thriving. We're here. We're ready to not take a victory lap, but just to merely point out that this is a player that desperately just needed space. He just needed room to grow. He needed room to operate. And with that space, he has been every bit the fantastic downhill, athletic, physical guard that we envisioned when he was coming through the draft. I had Ivy 4th in that draft. I think he has been so good in terms of being able to use that ability to get downhill in a straight line, get to the basket, and score. He's shooting 48, 43, 75 so far this season, 21 points, 4.4 rebounds, 3.6 assists. True shooting percentage is basically right around where Cam Thomas is. But, overall to me, again, I look at it from a sustainability thing. This just looks entirely sustainable. When I watch him with space now, it's just so hard to stay in front of him. It's so fucking hard to stay in front of him.
Yep. My guy, Jeremy, DM me in the offseason. I think I've told this story before and said hey, you guys keep talking about the space for Cade. What about the space for Ivy? And it's been so true. Here's another really interesting stat with those two guys. Last season, they were only on the court one or the other together 77% of the time. This season, 98% of the time, one or the other or both are on the court, which the point of that stat is they're being staggered. So we're seeing Jaden Ivey being used in the best way. He's playing off of Cade Cunningham and they're doing it well because he's knocking down catch and shoot 3-pointers right now. So that obviously helps, but he's cutting off of him. You know that Jaden Ivey also averages 1.5 offensive rebounds a game. It's a sneaky skill that he's gotten pretty good at throughout his career. He can get out in transition, all of that stuff. But then they sub him out 6 minutes into the game. They bring in Malik Beasley to give Cade spacing. And then at the start of the second quarter, right at the end of the first, they bring J.I. back in. They set Cade. And now it's J.I.'s show with real spacing around him that includes Beasley, Fontecchio, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. Theoretically Stu, even though that's a whole nother conversation because he's not shooting threes right now for some reason. But that's a different podcast for a different day. I want to make quick mention, or make sure we mention, his defense is vastly improved, Sam. It's so much better.
That's the big thing for me. Like, you look at Cam Thomas, it'd be impossible to say that like Cam Thomas is not having a better offensive season than what Jaden Ivey is having so far. But when we start to talk about the defense, like that's where, for me, I've been more impressed with Ivey this season. And that's when I talk about the sustainability factor of all of this. Ivey's defense looks so much better under this new staff and JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, it's been night and day. And for what it's worth, Cade has been better, but we already talked about that. But J.I. takes the toughest matchup, Sam. He guarded Tyrese Maxey last night and made Maxey work for it. Last year, he would not have. Maxey would have went for 45 on efficient numbers, and it would have been really, really bad. He guarded Donovan Mitchell. Like every matchup, he's taken the other team's best player. I assume he'll guard Jalen Brunson on Friday. He will guard one of Schroder or Cam Thomas on Sunday when they play the Nets. So he's doing that matchup defensively while doing this offensively. And here's one of the best things. I thought he struggled a little bit against the Heat offensively. I thought it was a little bit of a down game, and he came back and I think had one of his best games against the Sixers. It's kind of that bounce back. Seeing that from J.I. was really important to see. It's real growth. And he is truly, I know people look at the Pistons record and it's 1-4 and all of that. It's not because of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. I will tell you that much. Those two guys are playing really, really well.
Yeah, for me, their record is because Duren has not been very good to this point. Tobias Harris, like, has not been great. Like, let's be clear about that. Like, in terms of individual play.
Yeah.
But his presence is opening things up in a big way.
It's a factor.
The guards.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Like, look, he's making a ton of money to average like 10 points a game. And that's a problem. And they need more from him. But his presence has been useful for them. For sure. And then Stewart's been weird this season too. I have not been as impressed with him as what I like coming into the year.
I like him on defense, but he's only taken 1-3 the whole season, which it's I don't know. That the big man spot has been weird because Duren hasn't. Yeah, that's been a weird season. But yes, Jaden Ivey. Attention on Jaden Ivey. I feel a little bit vindicated because I said I think he can work here. I think if you stagger him and play him in the right role, he can be effective offensively. And then it was all about, would he make that personal growth defensively? And he started to do that.
Bryce, how many times did you and I talk about, okay, Cade and Ivey are like a perfect complement to one another. Ivey is like the downhill transition force who can, get second side kickouts from Cade after Cade bends the defense and be able to attack that way. And then he can play a little bit of point when he like all of this, is perfect. To me, all of this works perfectly together. And I'm so glad we're getting to see it now more than anything.
Yep. And for J.I., because everything I've heard, I mean, people who don't know, I'm not around the team. I'm not in Detroit. I'm not a beat writer. But everything I've heard is J.I. is an extremely, extremely hard worker. And so I'm really happy for him to kind of see this success because it was rough, as we've alluded to. It couldn't have been easy, the gut punch he got last year after a really good rookie season, then to come in and get benched and everything he went through in his sophomore campaign.
It is truly one of the all-time baffling coaching moves that Monty Williams played Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey.
I recorded with our guy Andrew this morning on Nick's Film School. My energy was pretty high for some reason. I had worked out, coffee, like maybe started the day, whatever.
Rolling.
And I kind of went off on it. Like it was as went off as I can go off on something, but it was a very energetic and inspired conversation about Jaden Ivey not starting last year behind Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I feel like I did that a couple of weeks ago on the show. Like I don't need to rehash it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we move to Bryce's next picks, shout out the folks at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Sign up today. And you're going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. They also offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. If you think somebody like Justin Jefferson's going to get more than 83.5 yards or something like that this week, if you think that, again, my guy, Tyrone Tracy, if you think Tyrone Tracy is going to get a bunch of yards if he plays after I think he got like a little concussion. I hope he plays this week. If you think he's going to get more than his projected yardage total, absolutely, you can pick him to go over that number. You can cook up your hot takes with your friends and win real money. My goodness. This football season, when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks, download the app today and use that code Game Theory to get through $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use that code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. Your next pick, Bryce.
So I'm going to cheat again, if that's okay. I'm going to go with two players because I couldn't just pick between one or the other. I'm going to go down to Orlando. And this is one where I'm talking about like guys that are already big names. But I'm going to go Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs for this one. And I know Paolo exploded the other night. I think you broke that down. So make sure everybody goes and checks that out. But then like I watched it and I was like, it was even more impressive than just what the numbers were. How physical he is, how he just bullies guys around. But then what also stood out to me, like I knew he had scored 50 before I watched the game. I actually thought his defense was fine also. Like I thought he was playing very hard defensively and making an impact on that end. I thought the energy was good. He had a low man rim protection on Miles Turner in that game. And I was just like, this dude is getting buckets. He had 37 in the first half or whatever it was, and he's still giving energy. And then I look at the numbers. His points are up by 6. Field goal percentage is up. 3-point percentage is up on volume. Free throw attempts are almost double. He's rebounding the ball better. Assists, like everything. So it's just like, it's kind of one of those jumps I don't know that people always like whenever you like, it's the jump from like really good player to great player or all-star level to all NBA level. But I feel like those jumps are really, really hard. And so they always stand out to me. I watched Paolo play the other day and like, this guy might be an all NBA level player. Like if he continues to play like this, like that performance. So him. And then for Jalen Suggs, we know he's first team all NBA level defense. The reason I wanted to mention Jalen Suggs as well, Sam, how about the 3-point volume from Jalen Suggs right now? Like real floor spacing at 8 attempts a game at 43%. That's huge. Yep. We talked about that when we did our 24 under 24. If that floor spacing is real, that is an unbelievable two-way wing or guard, whatever, that defends and spaces the floor with a little bit of ball handling as well.
So just in case you did not get to see it, I broke down Paolo's 50-point game over at the YouTube channel. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. The thing that impressed me most in Paolo's 50-point game, this is like a 23-minute breakdown I did. Do you know how many potential assists Paolo had in that game?
I think I saw you mention it. 13?
He had 15.
15. Okay.
15 potential assists plus 2 hockey assists. And he had like a couple other hockey assists that ended up like not going through. But he was so unselfish. Like for a guy that ended up taking like, 25 shots and getting 22 free throws in that game, there was nothing selfish about the 50. He moved the ball well. Every time that 2 defenders came to him, he attacked via the pass, right? He still is somebody that will hold the ball. Like he is somebody that generally likes to, hold on to the ball and survey what's going on. And sometimes things can slow down, right? Like that's a real factor with Paolo. But I will say, and I think that Franz was sick that night, which is why like he ended up playing like 22, 23 minutes, something like that. Franz is like a perfect secondary star off of him. Jalen Suggs is like a perfect secondary star off of somebody like that that's going to hold the ball. Paolo does make like the, quick pass occasionally, but for the most part, he's the one that's going to collapse the defense because he is the mismatch nightmare. And then you have to have everyone else around him that's going to make the quick passes around. I think Orlando's done a really good job of creating that kind of situation for Paolo to be able to thrive in, be successful in, and be able to accentuate his gifts. I mean, so far, like very clearly an all-star in the Eastern Conference this year. And I mean, look, we'll see if he's an all NBA guy. I mean, thus far, I think it'd be somewhat difficult not to say he has been like a top 15 guy in the league. I don't know if that will hold. A big piece of it for Paolo is funny. I was talking to, somebody there, and like, I was just like, look, like for Paolo, it's all about, is he a 42% mid-range shooter or is he a 49 to 50% mid-range shooter? Right. And probably right now it's somewhere in the middle, but if he's higher end of that, it's pretty serious.
Yeah, no, I mean the mid-range is big for him. I'm glad you brought up the like where he holds the ball at times, but there's so many other good passers and ball movers on that team that it doesn't matter. It's okay to have one ball stopper like him. It's okay for him to ISO every once in a while. And he's really good making plays to the weak side, even in those isolations. So I don't think it ends up being a bad thing. And I'm glad you brought up the passing because every game I watched this year, I think the passing has stood out. I thought he was a really good passer. I was really high on Paolo coming out of Duke. Like I thought he was the hub of an offense type of player. And so as we see that passing increase, get better every single year, and the turnovers are actually down. So, isolation doesn't necessarily just mean, it doesn't mean turnovers. They're down for him, even though he does stop the ball times to time. And then what I loved in that game is the defense got really aggressive with him. They tried to get physical with him. So then he was patient and just started drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line. Like I thought he had an answer kind of for everything that came. And when the jumper's going, it's almost impossible to guard him because he is so physical. That's what stood out to me. Pascal Siakam's a good defender and a big dude. And Paolo was just shoving him off on his drives. I was just really impressed with that game. And again, I want to highlight again, I came away going, man, he's really engaged defensively. And that stood out to me in a game where he was going crazy offensively.
And on the Suggs front, look, I think part of like the scoring jump is mostly like 3-point improvement and 3-point volume based so far. I will say, I think he's gotten better defensively. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I think he has gotten better and even more disruptive and pesky and pesty and frustrating defensively. He had a play against Chicago where I think Zach LaVine was coming up in transition and he like kind of jumps at LaVine at half court and LaVine like tries to throw a jump pass over him. He just like puts his right hand up and just like grabs the ball and then just like starts a fast break. It was one of the craziest like steals I think I've seen in a long time. Part of why I think his defense is getting better is I think that the anticipation on defense is getting better, which comes with experience, obviously, right? Like that becomes the easier way to do it. So he is, to me, like he has probably been like a first team all defense guy after making second team all defense last year. He's been fantastic on that end.
Yeah. And I think, from the Nets game, he just has these crazy second efforts. So guys are going to get beat at times, right? But he gets a second effort block on Cam Thomas. He did get beat off the dribble, but he gives that second effort. He blocks the left-hand layup attempt off the backboard. It's just the energy he plays with. So he's really good and he's really engaged. But then when he gets beat, he has the athleticism, the timing, the anticipation, and that probably comes with time. You understand, okay, this guy beats me. How's he going to try to finish now that he beat me? Is he a Euro step guy? Is he a floater guy? Is he a pull-up jumper guy? Is he reverse to the other side of the rim guy? Is he a passer? Does he like to break down the defense and pass where I can jump the passing lane even after he beats me? I'm sure he's figuring those things out. One quick thing on Paolo, kind of the top whatever player in the league. 4 guys right now averaging 25, 8, and 5. Paolo, Jokic, Giannis, and Luka. I mean, that's just the company he's in here early in the season.
Final note here on Orlando, more traditional breakout kind of player that has been there is Anthony Black.
Yes.
Anthony Black has been so good to start the year. I think he's at like 9 or 10 points per game coming off the bench. He's been really, really good defending, making quick passing reads. Another guy that just like processes
ball
super
mover.
Quick and makes
so good at it.
Moves the ball really, really quickly. And he's been hitting corner threes, which is really, really important for them as well. Drilled the corner 3 to win their game against, who was that? Indiana.
The Pacers.
It was the Paolo game.
Yep.
He has really shown like improvement, and I think that he's going to be a critical piece for them moving forward as well.
I'm glad you brought it up. That's a great call.
Next up, I'm going Gradey Dick.
He's on my list
in Toronto. Gradey Dick has been awesome so far this season. I kind of thought that after his rookie season that it might take a little while. It has not. It has not taken any while. He is here, and he is super useful for Toronto. So he's averaging 19 points per game, shooting 48.5% from the field, only 34.4% from 3, and 89% from the line. That 34 number is going to go up.
I think that's what makes it impressive, Sam. If he was shooting 45% from 3, I'd be like, all right, he's just making threes. I think it's impressive that he's doing what he's doing, only quote unquote shooting 30 whatever percent from 3. That's why it stands out to me.
Yeah, the Gradey hive should be pretty real. So what's been most impressive about me with Gradey Dick has been the way that Toronto's utilizing him. They're running him all sorts of like crazy actions and stuff.
Yeah.
In more than anything, like he's been like a fantastic mid-range gunner to this point. He had some of that at Kansas. Like he definitely had moments where he would like, step in, attack a closeout, drill a mid-range jumper. He had like a couple of floaters here and there at Kansas, but he's so clearly added to that in-between game throughout the course of the summer to where they're able to like really weaponize him to create shots in that area. They utilize him in such a really interesting way to be able to come off of like also all sorts of like curls and all sorts of interesting little different actions. Like he is something, man. Like he is playing really, really well on offense right now. And look, he's going to have to add the passing more than anything to me. Like that's where the next step's going to have to come. He needs to rebound the ball. Dude, you are 6'7", 6'8". Like you absolutely got to go up and get the ball. Like you are an athlete. Like please go get more than 1.5 rebounds per game. But as a scorer, I think everything that I've seen so far from Gradey Dick is sustainable, especially within the way that they utilize him within that offense.
Yes, that's all the off-ball movement just really stood out. I watched him against the Nuggets, and just watching those Nuggets defenders try to chase him around off different actions, and they would get lost at times. He would lose them or cutting on the baseline. It was very, very interesting to watch him take advantage of all of those screens. And again, I'm with you. I think the shooting will come. I'm glad you mentioned the rebounding. He's too athletic. He's too big. He's too athletic to be averaging that minimal of rebounds. So that's where that added value really comes in for that archetype of player. Where are you at with his defense? I always thought defensively wasn't necessarily going to be great on the ball, but I thought he had enough kind of awareness, length, athleticism to be disruptive. So he's at a steal, he's at half a block. I feel like he can do a little bit of that on the defensive end where he's just active, he's disruptive, he can make a play, jump a passing lane, maybe come over and verticality contest as the low man and just kind of be that type of deterrent on the defensive end.
I do think the off-ball defense has generally been pretty okay. I will say, like, the on-ball stuff is they're like catastrophic on defense, dude. Like they're like really bad, and part of that is not all. Like I don't want to totally blame him. Like it's absolutely not all him. But like, look, they're giving up 121 points per 100 possessions right now. They're dead last in the NBA in defense. Like we would be lying if we said that he wasn't a real piece of that, especially with the way he does get hit on ball from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what I mean. It's a little bit of a struggle there, but again, I do think he's very active, which I like. And I like these guys that really move off the ball the way he does, the way they can run around and use screens. And it's not just that. I guess I want to emphasize it's not just that. He makes the backdoor cuts. And I just think he's a guy that understands how he can leverage his shooting to get shots inside the 3-point line. I think sometimes somebody like Gradey Dick gets this, oh, he's just a floor spacer. He's just a shooter. I think he understands how to leverage that into other attempts inside the 3-point line. And once the 3-point shot starts going down at a better clip, not only will the efficiency go up even more, but he'll get even harder closeouts and be able to leverage that even more so.
Yeah, no, I really, really like what Gradey has shown this year. And again, like to me, like them having a real movement shooter next to Scotty Barnes is like a perfect fit. Yep. Like that, Scotty's obviously out right now with the broken orbital bone, but hopefully we'll get to see more of them together because I think they could work really, really well off of one another. I don't think this is going to be a particularly good year in Toronto necessarily, based off of what we've seen early. They're 1-4. Again, they are just like truly catastrophic on defense, but the offense so far has actually been like pretty fun. Like I've had a good time watching their games. At least I'll say that.
Yep.
Okay. You are up with your third player, Bryce.
Okay, so the next guy on my list was Bilal Coulibaly. How much do we want to get into this? Because I know you did a breakdown.
We'll talk about it. Yeah,
okay.
Look, the breakdown didn't go up on the podcast feed, so by all means, if you want like a full scale breakdown of this, go over to the YouTube channel. These night shows that I'm doing over on YouTube, they live on the YouTube channel just because like there's no ability to put them on the podcast feed. Like that's just not what they are. It's a visual medium, right? So go check that out if you want to see more on Bilal Coulibaly.
Okay, so Coulibaly averaging almost 19 points, 59, 42, 83, just under 6 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1.8 stocks. I watched him play against the Celtics. I was like, okay, like taking the Tatum matchup, doing a good job staying in front, making him work. Just, Tatum's playing insane right now and so good using bumps, and Coulibaly still got to get a little bit stronger. But I was like, man, offensively he's being super aggressive. Like he's attacking off the bounce and he looks comfortable, especially going to his right. He had a drive and finish, pull up jumper, drive and dump off to a big. I want to talk about his left hand at some point when we get into this. And then I watch him against the Hawks. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And he takes the Trae Young matchup and I'm like, goodness, his screen navigation was really good. The difference between him and everybody else was night and day. Again, even when he got hung up, he gave that second effort, plays off the ball, has a verticality contest. Like he played it in drop, Sam, and looked like he knew what he was doing. Like he tried to contest the lob and almost got it, even at his side, had a weak side lob contest from behind. The versatility just really showed out. And then offensively, so he draws a foul off the dribble, catch and shoot 3-point make, offensive rebound, had a transition lob, had a off-ball cut, then a mid-range jumper. I was just like, holy cow, he is doing everything on both ends of the floor. And it just was really, really impressive. Again, him taking the matchup of Trae Young and expending this energy and showing this offensive game at the same time.
Okay, so with Bilal, currently averaging 18.8 points, shooting 59, 42, 83. That is, I don't think that's going to hold for Bilal, if I'm being completely honest. But what's important to me in terms of what I've seen so far is that Coulibaly is showing a comfort level from the mid-range, which is something that, again, like last year, and then at Metropolitans the year before that, like I can't imagine. I never would have guessed at 20 years old in the NBA, having just turned 20 in the NBA, that he would have been able to make those shots this early in his career. Like 0% chance I would have put it at. But like he's getting to those spots and is pretty comfortable. The body has filled out. Like that's honestly probably the most important thing that's happened for him is he's able to like really absorb contact around the basket now and absorb contact along the perimeter. defensively, like his ability to get through screens, like you said, is ridiculous. He is so fluid through his hips. He's so long. He knows how to cut down angles using his length at a really elite level. His ability in recovery last night, like watching Trae Young have to deal with him in recovery was fascinating. Like Trae is a savant out of ball screens, right? Like it's completely ridiculous. He is constantly like trying to keep like a peripheral like vision on where Bilal is coming from behind, because he knows like, okay, if I go up with a like floater here, there's a good shot this is getting swatted. If I go up with like a quick little pass to the wrong direction, he's going to deflect it. Like he had a couple moments last night where like he had a couple of deflections that were like completely insane. And then he had one last night where I forget who it was who threw like this terrible, it might've been Ivica, threw like this terrible entry pass in off of like Bilal rejected a dribble handoff going to Trae and then ran around with him. And Ivica tried to throw this lofted like entry pass into Trae. And Bilal was like, nope, just going to use my 7'2" wingspan and go get this ball. That's going to be super easy. He was so good last night. Honestly, it's probably one of the 20 best individual games I've watched this season. I haven't watched every single game. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I've seen, like I didn't watch Karl Anthony Towns go for 40 yet last night. Right. But
yeah, man,
I thought Bilal was so good last night. I thought that everything he did was awesome. And he looks, I don't know how sustainable all of the shooting is. He had like an air ball last night. The mechanics are very robotic still. But the growth is real. And I said this last night, and I'll be interested to hear what you would say about this. If we had to redo the 24 under 24 list, I would have him on it.
I will
right now.
Let me pull up my list and see where,
for instance, I really like Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray's awesome. And Keegan Murray's like a little bit better than what he is right now, I think, probably at basketball. Bilal is 6'6", 6'7" with a 7'2" wingspan and is 20 years old and is getting better like rapidly every time we see him on the court.
Yeah. So the embarrassing thing is I don't know that we mentioned his name when we did that. He's not even on my spreadsheet.
Oh, he was on my like longer, like 50 person list, but like was not close. Right. Yeah. Because he just like didn't have any ball skill last year. He now has pretty serious ball skill. And
so let me ask you about the two things. The shooting, I think the dip is really elongated still, and it takes him forever to get it off.
Yes.
And do you see the issues with him in his left hand as much as I do?
Yeah. I mean, he's not good with his left hand. And honestly, the handle is still pretty loose. But
yeah,
he's 20 years old. And these strides are like insane. Like somebody on the show last night asked, like, would you take Bilal or the Thompson twins? Basically. I had to stop and think about it. I would definitely take him over Asar. Like I'm not as high on Asar as what some people are, but like I had to really stop and think about a man at this point.
I don't want to have this conversation.
It's kind of crazy, right? Like that's the leap that Bilal has taken this year.
He's better than Asar offensively right now, right? Like if you dump Asar,
he is also better defensively, Bryce.
Because
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, because if you dumped Asar into that role, I don't think Asar could handle that right now. And Bilal is way further along with the jumper.
Yeah, like I don't think you could put Asar on Trae Young and Asar would be as successful.
That's what I want to see this year, though. That's what and we haven't got a chance. In fairness to Asar, we haven't got a chance. I want to see how good the defense is.
Yeah.
But we've seen it with Bilal. Yeah, the fact that we even have to say that's a good question is kind of crazy, right? Like, which I think is the point of this episode, right? Because nobody was talking about Bilal early in the year. Also, that Wizards team is like awesome because they're just leaning. They started all 3 rookies last night, which I think is awesome. And then they went and won. Then they won. They won the game and started all of them. It's amazing.
And started Bilal, who I think is younger than Keyshawn George.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So yeah, I kept thinking the 3 rookies, and I saw Carrington and Bilal. Like I just kept doing that in my head naturally, and then it's like, no, you idiot, Bilal's not a rookie. It's Keyshawn and Bilal is who they're starting within Jordan Poole, who acts like he's a rookie with his shot selection anyway. So like you just go crazy with the youth.
Yeah, I would like to see them move Kyle Kuzma. Like,
yes,
lean all the way in. Let's just have fun. Let's do this. Let's have a great time. There were a couple moments last night where like Alex Sarr was like grabbing and going on the break, and like,
I will say I've seen just enough from him. This is what I put in my notes.
Yeah,
to not make me worried that my pre-draft analysis was crazy. Like he's doing just enough and flashing just enough where I'm like, okay, I wasn't crazy with what I saw. I still don't know if it's going to hit, and I don't know if I'm as confident as I was, but you can see the defensive impact. He made a couple threes, including a big one from the corner. He made a tough mid-range fadeaway. I think what's going to come down to him offensively is like, is he ever able to execute in a screen and roll? Like, can he short roll floater? Can he catch a lob? Or does he just have to be an elite floor spacer? You know, we've talked about the hands and catching and all of that stuff, but he's showing just enough still in flashes where it's keeping me like, okay, I wasn't crazy with what I thought I saw.
Yep. No, I don't disagree. Okay. The last guy we're going to talk about is Jalen Green.
Okay.
Oh boy. Okay. So Jalen Green is in the top 10 in scoring right now in the NBA. I think he has been really good, I would say, in 3 of the 4 games. Or no, I've watched 3 of his games so far. In 2 of the 3 that I watched, I thought he was really, really good. Like really, really good. So far, he's averaging 29 points, 3.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, shooting 43% from the field, 41 from 3, 83 from the line. He is shooting 41 from 3 on 11 and a half 3-point attempts per game. That is a ridiculous percentage on ridiculous volume. I thought a big problem actually in the first game was that he settled too much from 3. He took 15 in that game, I think, if I remember correctly, and they ended up losing. And it felt like he was kind of forcing the issue while also being a little too passive in terms of his driving ability. He's also averaging 6 free throw attempts per game this year, which is right around his career high number. I honestly think that the process has been better for him on his drives. I think that he looks like he's slowing down a little bit more, which is really good. It just looks a little bit more polished. He looks a little bit more poised. The footwork, I think, looks better. His balance looks a bit better to me. I don't feel like the finishing has been particularly good. I'll look up the numbers kind of while I'm talking about that, because to me, like the Jalen Green finishing thing has always been a little bit frustrating in half court settings. So he's up to like 57% in half court settings looking at synergy, which I would imagine is a career high for him. I think he was right around like 51 last year, and I think that was the high previously. A lot of the inefficiency overall is certainly coming just from like the mid-range shots that he's like occasionally taking. Like I would imagine that those numbers like aren't particularly good. So yeah, so far from the mid-range, Jalen Green is 3 for 20 on the year. I would like to see that come along, but all told, like really positive strides. And like, I'm cautiously optimistic about what we've seen from him as an overall like athletic playmaker who you have to put the ball in his hands, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the twitch is just insane. And this is a team I watched I watched one of the early games, but I was a little bit distracted, so my notes weren't as good, and I haven't rounded back to them yet. So I don't have as much on him and this team in general. When you kind of look at the numbers, I'll be interested to get your thoughts. Like, is Fred just not making shots? Şengün's numbers are kind of down. Like it just his are the only numbers that are really popping off on like, oh man, this guy's really playing well, and everybody else seems a little bit down. The one thing I will say, the more I have watched Jalen Green and really looked at his game is, yeah, we always talk about the athleticism, the explosion, blah, blah, blah. He has nuance with the way he does things as well. Like he had one, I believe it was actually maybe a preseason game, but he initially
much improved.
Yeah, he snakes the ball screen, then he ripped back over the top of the big, then finished with like this really quick right-hand scoop on the left side of the rim. And it's like, okay, this isn't just being an athlete. This is using your athleticism to navigate defenders to get to a shot that you can make. And then he had one in the second half where he just like attacks Herb Jones. And then, Misi, who's been really good for the Pelicans as a rookie, he played through him and through that contact at the rim. So I just kind of wanted to highlight, the more I've watched, the more I've appreciated this isn't just an athlete being really athletic. He's using his athleticism to get to spots and navigate and maneuver around defenders.
Yeah. And look, like the Rockets so far, they're 1-3. They're going to play here in, half an hour or whatever. I think they play Dallas tonight. Their problem has not been Jalen Green at all. Like not even a little bit. Their problems are, Alper and Şengün so far has not been very good. Except for the game against Charlotte where he was really good on offense in their opener. He is kind of going through it the last 3 games. He's averaging in total 15 points on 39% shooting. Like your big can't shoot 39%, especially when a lot of his shots are around the rim, right? Like that just can't be the reality. Jabari Smith is shooting under 40%. Dylan Brooks is shooting under 40%. Fred VanVleet is shooting 34% from the field right now. His shooting has been a really big problem for them so far. Amen Thompson is shooting under 40% from the field. But here's the thing.
Cam Whitmore too.
Cam Whitmore, yeah, he's shooting 39% from the field. Reed Shepard shooting 33% from the field. So like the big issue here is, to me, and they're 2-2, as a couple Rockets fans bring up in the comments. For some reason, I thought they were 1-3. A big issue for them, I think, is the floor spacing. If Fred is not making shots, and when Alperin is kind of handling the ball in the middle of the court, I think that teams are basically just collapsing and forcing them to beat them from outside on like with shots. And right now they don't have a lot of great shooters, but also when you collapse and just like play heavy help around the rim, it makes it harder to be efficient. So, I mean, I think I would like to see Houston like get a shooter at some point. Like that's going to be big for them, is going out and finding shooting, because, look, Dylan Brooks is making 35% from 3, but like teams don't really care if he shoots. Like teams help off of Jabari Smith right now. Like they're pretty good if he's the one shooting. Amen Thompson obviously is not really a shooter. Tari Eason, like even though he made 3s last year in his limited time, teams don't really guard him, it feels like, when he's on the court as a shooter. So I think they just need like they need some shooting at some point. It's going to be a critical thing for kind of helping them be able to take that next step moving forward.
Yep. I agree. It'll be interesting that they have a lot of guys who I guess I thought would be, I thought Jabari was going to be an elite floor spacer. Obviously he's not right now. I thought Cam Whitmore could shoot. Hasn't made a 3 this season. Shepard's playing less than 10 minutes a night. So either those guys have to start playing more and knocking down shots, or you have to go find somebody that can.
Yep. I think that's absolutely right. I will also note their game against San Antonio. Steven Adams played. It was nice. Shout out Steven Adams. He's back. Getting to see him play. Any other random names you want to pop through real quick? As I
had 4 other names. I'll just say them. And Trey Mann, obviously putting up big numbers. Ty Jerome was the guy I alluded to earlier, playing backup point for the Cavs and doing so very effectively. Andrew Wiggins has had a really nice start to the season for the Warriors. Mm-hmm. And then my guy, Jordan Hawkins down in New Orleans.
Yeah, Trey Mann is another one I wanted to bring up. 20 points per game so far this season. He's just kind of getting to his pull up when he wants to, right? He has been really, really effective being able to get to that shot. Jeremy Sochan's a guy that I broke down another video I've done recently. Really excellent player for the Spurs right now. Ton of energy, aggression, rebounding, all of that. He has been very, very useful for San Antonio. Ivica Zubac has taken like a nice little jump on offense to this point. He's had a couple of fun
Norman
games.
Powell, right? Norman Powell has been able to go crazy with the Clippers, right? Yeah, he's averaging 26 a game on 50, 43, 87. So those two guys taking advantage of the usage.
Payton Pritchard's up to 16 points per game early on.
I was going to put him on my list, but I'd already talked about him, and so I didn't. But
he had that monster 28-point game against I think it was who was that? I can't remember. Might have been. I'll look it up while we're kind of running through these last names. I will also note, look, Scoot, is still a work in progress for sure. I thought the last two games, and I thought particularly the game against the Clippers, was really good from Scoot. He had 18, 4 and 5 against the Kings. He had 14, 3 and 6 against the Clippers. Look, the turnovers, he's still going to have to work through that, but there are at least some strides being shown there for sure. And the Pritchard game was the Bucks. Yeah.
How long till we have a Victor Wembanyama conversation?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
I didn't think so either.
At some point, but not yet.
I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do rookies and sophomores one week. Probably not this weekend, going into next week, but probably the week after. We'll talk about more rookies and sophomores, and at that point, we'll talk about Victor and see if he's kind of come out of this thing. I mean, look, their team is a total catastrophe on offense. They desperately need Devin Vassell back to be able to have another offensive option at the end of the day.
Yep. No, I caught some of that game last night. Is this is a little bit ugly right now. Not great. They're playing the Thunder, who are awesome. So, but
yep. Okay. You have trivia.
I do.
Do you not?
I do. I always have trivia. It's way easier now too. I'll keep it simple tonight. Since you are solo, we're going 24-25 NBA season. Sam, there are currently 11 players averaging 7 or more assists per game early in the season. I will say DeJounte Murray is not on this list. I'm not counting him. He got 10 in his one game he played. Everybody else has played at least 4 or 5. There's no trickery really here. There are some interesting names, a couple, but 7 or more assists per game here early in the season, 11 NBA players.
Okay. So Trae Young is one of them.
Trae Young is number 1 in the NBA, averaging 11.6.
I'm assuming Luka is one of them.
Luka, not as high on the list as what you would think. He is actually the 11th player on the list, right at 7 assists per game. So you have bookended us here. We need the 9 names in the middle.
Yeah, it's been a little bit funky with Luka to this point. Okay, now this is where we're going to get a little bit tricky. Okay, I'm going to guess that based off of the pace that the Grizzlies are playing at, that John Morant is here.
John Morant is on this list, 8.3, 5th in the NBA in assists per game early in the season.
Okay. Oh, we mentioned Schroder earlier. That'd be one.
Schroder, 6th on this list, 8.2 assists per game.
I have to imagine that Harden is on this list.
Number 2, 11.3.
Yeah. Harden has been awesome so far this year, by the way.
23.5, 11.3, 7.5 rebounds. Does average 6.3 turnovers. But yes, he's having to do a lot for that team. So you have number 1, number 2. We'll skip number 3 because he is injured. So that would be 4 and 5. And then, as I mentioned, number 11.
So Jokic has to be here because he has the triple doubles.
Jokic is a third on this list at 9.3. So you've gone 1 Trey, 2 Harden, 3 Jokic, 4 Morant, 5 Schroder, and then again bookend it at the end. So everybody that has averaged 8 or more assists, you have guessed that you've got the top 5. The next 5 are between 7 and 8.
Okay. So this is where this is going to get a little bit more.
There's some interesting. I think there's one name you do not get. I don't think. I think 3 of them you should be able to get.
Okay.
We have talked about one of these players on this episode.
On this episode, we have talked about one of these players.
One of the 5 we have talked. Yes, in some capacity, we have talked about this player. He may not have been like the star of the conversation, but he was discussed.
Like in depth or like?
He wasn't the initial name on the list, but he quickly got brought up as we discussed that player.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about Cade.
Cade, 7.4 assists. What would that be? He would be like tied for 7th on the list.
Yeah. So obviously Halliburton's a name that comes up like pretty quickly here in your mind. He has not been great this year.
He has not.
Is he still there though?
He is not. 6.6.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I thought it'd be close. I didn't think it was like
didn't he have
no brainer that he was there?
I knew he wasn't because I remember when I looked up his stats, I was like, okay, he's not scoring, but I bet he's still like creating. And I was like, oh, his creation numbers are way down. So he has had 12 and 10 in his last 2 games, but before that it was 5 or less.
Yeah. Yeah. He struggled early on to start.
Yep.
It was kind of weird.
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to think. So like another team that's playing at a super high pace right now is Chicago, but like I don't think that Giddey is quite there. Levine is not there. And I don't think like Kobe White is there either. So like I don't think it's them.
It is not. Giddey is the best of those, and he's at 5.8.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. These are all primary initial. Like these are all like point guards. Like there's no like trickery, big man, something weird.
Yeah. Okay. So LaMelo's been amazing to start the year.
Yep.
So probably LaMelo, I would guess.
He's at 7, so it's not like this isn't outlandish that it took you a little while to get there. He's tied with Luka for whatever. Tied for 10th, I guess. But yeah, he's right at 7. So you're missing 3 names.
Okay. Let's run through this. Let's run through teams. Okay. So starting in the West, like nobody on the, like, I don't think LeBron's there. He hasn't been good enough to start the year.
He's actually at 6.6, but still not good enough.
Yeah. I mean, the Clippers, we got Harden already. Phoenix. Is Tyus Jones here?
He is not, but he is the first Phoenix Sun name you will come across at 6 per game.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I don't think Portland is going to have anybody here. I'm like just running through like the West. Is De'Aaron Fox here?
De'Aaron Fox. He is number 6 at 7.5. So we have number 1, Trey, 11.6. 2, Harden, 11.3. Jokic is 3rd, 9.3. Morant 4th, 8.3. Schroder 5th, 8.2. Fox 6, 7.5. Cade tied for 7th at 7.4. You have to get the other name there. So it'll be 7, 8, 9. Number 9 you have not got. And then tied for 10 at 7 is LaMelo and Luka.
Okay. So Texas teams, we got Luka already. I mean, yeah, Fred's not here. I know Fred isn't there yet. I mean, is Chris Paul here?
Chris Paul is here. Chris Paul. That was one that I thought would be tough, but I thought you would still get.
It was tough. Let's be clear. I did not know that one. That was a guess.
7.3. Chris Paul, 7.3. So you were missing one name. If I don't give you a hint, I do not think you will get this.
Okay, let me run through teams here real quick. Okay, so Minnesota, I don't think Ant is here. I don't think that Mike Conley is here. I mean, like Cleveland. Is Darius Garland here?
Darius Garland is not here. Let me see. He not bad. 6. The first Cavalier that you get to, averaging 6 a game.
Okay. I think Jamal Shed is up over 5, but like I don't think this is him.
That is a really good way of thinking about this. He's at 5.6.
That is a good way of thinking about this. So it's somebody on like the Jamal Shed level.
Sure. Yeah. Sort of.
What the fuck is this price?
It's somebody we've talked about multiple times on the pod over the last 2 months. Like
multiple times on the pod over the last 2 months.
Yep.
Give me another hint then.
Western Conference.
Western Conference. Okay.
So,
I mean, you said it's primary playmakers, so it's not anybody on New Orleans because DeJounte doesn't count here. I've gone through most of the West teams already. I mean, I already said Ja from Memphis. I already went through the Texas teams. Trying to think but Jamal Shed level, like now I'm thrown. Oh. So I'm just again, how I got John Morant was thinking high pace. There's no fucking way this is Scottie Pippen or something, right?
Scottie Pippen Jr. at 7.4. Listen, I had to go to his real GM page to make sure that it was right. Scottie Pippen Jr.
Yeah, there's just no, that's crazy to me. That's
7.4 assists per game for our guy, Scottie Pippen Jr.
Yeah, the only reason I thought through that, in any way, shape, or form, was the hint about Shed level player, and then me knowing that Memphis is playing at this crazy, insane, drastic pace. If you wouldn't have given me hints, I would have had a 0.0% chance of getting that. Obviously, yeah, that's insane to me. Good for Scottie Pippen. Look, we've been saying for 3 months now that Scottie Pippen is very clearly an NBA player. Yeah, very obviously this is a dude.
Him and who? Him and J Huff. I feel like we sang praises coming out of Summer League, and I felt 100%. Like we were somewhat justified in those ones. Yeah, so the next names, Steph Curry, LeBron. I guess Curry's only played 3 games. Tyrese, Keontae George, Dame, Fred, Giannis, Davion Mitchell. So Jalen Williams.
Keontae George is also not a name I ever would have guessed on that one. Real quick before we get out of here, Jalen Hood-Schifino had his 3rd year option declined from the Lakers. Guy that's obviously had a number of injuries throughout the course of his career, and it's a little bit disappointing that we're at this point already. I mean, do you have any thoughts on where we're at here with Hood-Schifino? And everyone's kind of acting like this is, oh my God, they took Jalen Hood-Schifino at number 17. What in the world were they thinking? Jalen Hood-Schifino, basically everybody had him as a top 20 person. The only person I think that didn't have him in the top 20 was Hollinger. Hollinger had him in in the 40s or whatever. He just did not anything that Hood-Schifino brought to the table.
I got fooled by the Purdue game. That's my take. He cooked.
Yeah.
He cooked Purdue with Edey just playing drop. And I was very, very early in my draft scouting at that time. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. He's getting buckets. And obviously I like to think I've improved. Also, Beauchamp didn't get his either.
Yeah, so let's start with Hood-Schifino. Beauchamp, I'm not super surprised about. Like, that's a late first round pick, and it's a 4th-year option. Like, that stuff happens, right? So like Hood-Schifino, like this is from the draft guide, right? And I had Gradey Dick like 1 spot lower, so obviously not great with the way that Gradey is playing right now. But the question with Hood-Schifino's offensive role, will he be good enough as a mid-range 3-point pull-up scorer to keep defenses honest, to open his passing lanes? If not, can he improve as a shooter off the catch enough to become an off-ball player? If he can do any of that, he's immediately valuable as a role player in today's NBA because of how well he projects on defense. If he can just knock down a spot 3 consistently, that would be enough given his defense, passing, playmaking ability. What I think I probably underestimated a little bit is just how explosive he is.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's just like very much not a athletic, not athletic enough. Really, yeah. Unfortunately, that is a real problem. I did think he was like a little bit more of a project than what some people did. But I'm not like, I guess I am. I am surprised the Lakers are not persisting with this, the way that he has dealt with injuries more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are they trying to do that they wouldn't pick up this option? I guess is my question.
Yeah. I don't even want to, like, I just wonder, like, is it because of do they know something injury wise that like he's just not going to get healthy? Like, and I hate to even say it because I have no idea. Like, that's where my head goes. I obviously have no clue whatsoever. It makes me wonder, I guess, when you see this decision.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like he had the knee injury to start the season last year, then had like that crazy back injury. I mean, like, I just don't know, to be like, I don't totally know at this point what his long-term outlook is injury wise. So like, it's hard for me to like look at it and be like, hey, this is where this is going. Kind of. I hope he gets healthy more than anything. Like, I hope he is healthy. I'd like to see him play at some point. Yeah, like it's kind of where it sits with Jalen Hood-Schifino. Crazy that this is where we're at.
Yes. Yeah.
Very, very surprising. And like Beauchamp just hasn't shown enough improvement at the things that we had questions about. I think I had Beauchamp at like 30, 31, something like that year. It was always, will he shoot or will he not shoot?
Yeah.
It was always just a huge bet on, okay, is he going to knock down shots? If he doesn't, he's not an NBA player. If he does, he's probably really valuable because he's aggressive, he's athletic defensively, he's long, like there's a lot that can happen there. But Beauchamp was just always like a shooting bet in some way, shape, or form. Hood-Schifino like had ball skills and some passing ability, and like you could see he had more outs, kind of, I thought, but the injury just really put him behind the 8 ball, it feels like.
Yep.
So, okay. Anything else? Any other random things that we've got here before we want to go?
I don't have anything. I am about to go join my kids with their night of trick-or-treating and then figure out what I'm going to do with all their candy.
And by that, you mean you're going to eat it?
Throw it away.
Oh, Bryce, come on, bud. You gotta be a good father and eat your children's candy.
My children told me I should have dressed up as the Grinch for Halloween. That's what they think of me.
Unbelievable, Bryce.
But always remember, my daughter could never hate me as much as she hates you.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I'm the evil one here on this show. Okay, Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, any podcast, content, anything like that I'm putting out, you can find over there. Doing more stuff on Substack, draft stuff, startup, doing more guest spots on different pods. So just follow, you'll find it. Otherwise, Game Theory Podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I have done a recent thing where I named 9 of my favorite futures bets for college basketball. CJ Moore and I did our top 25 for the upcoming college basketball season. What else did we do? I have a story going up at some point, probably on Monday, based on what I'm hearing from NBA scouts regarding the NBA draft cycle here as we get the college season started next week, which that's quickly coming, Bryce. My goodness.
Yes,
but yeah, that's where we're at. Keep it locked here. Until next time, we'll talk soon.